controversial subjects with the facts can be tense, but we are a science here to make things make sense.
Today we are talking about type A versus type B personalities. Is that even a real thing? Is there science behind it? Are there certain health comes with one over the other? Is one better? Are you more attracted to one over the other? We're going to dive into all the interesting science and figure out what you actually are.
Also, this is based on a gorgeous listener question, which we're going to play because the voice is cute.
Hey guys, how's it going? I just heard the episode about left brain versus right brain, and it just got me thinking about people who identify as having type A or type B personalities. Me personally, I feel like I'm type A, and I found myself being more attracted to men who are type B. I don't know if you guys relate to that. I'm sure there's also so much research out there about type A and B personalities. You guys could probably make an episode or a video about this. I'd love to hear what you think.
And we did.
I'm screaming because aren't your speakers here?
Wait, what?
Aren't those?
No, they're on that side too.
Oh, okay. I just was like
God.
watching you record. Greg's recording it from his tablet. I just was like, are you even recording it from the right spot? Okay, we have lots to talk about. I feel like we have lots of opinions on each other.
Oh, God.
And
I'm wearing, look at my hat. It's an A hat.
Yes, but I think
For
like
type A.
I think like from the outside, at least when we were younger, people would call me type A and you type B. But I think Greg's an incognito type A.
Yeah, when I was doing the research, I was like, gulp.
And deep down, I probably want to be a type B. I'm like a type B.
No, I feel like you might be
cursed.
type B, but you want to be type A.
Maybe, yeah.
Or like you've been told you're type A by like your family or something.
I don't know.
Okay, so, well, when you read about type A, you're like, okay, nothing positive or good ever to be said. It's like, wait, the research is like, someone type B made this.
No, but at the same time, okay, a lot of the stuff for type B is just lacking the certain qualities of type A. Like it is not defined in and of itself. Type A. Okay, why don't we go through like what the typical traits are? We can talk about where this construct actually comes from, and then we'll talk about like the validity and what science exists behind it.
So it was invented by Friedman and Rosenman.
Wow.
Their names are all over this stuff. They literally
totally
figured it out, aka made it up. But it was in the 70s because they were conducting research on people with like heart disease and high blood pressure and found people essentially created this type A personality trait as this person who was very like, picture like a really like manic, outgoing, competitive person, but they were relating it to heart disease, and they just decided to call these types of people type A.
Yeah, in other words, they
from.
were like the people who are having all these cardiovascular issues seem to have similar personality traits.
Yes.
And those traits were things like they're super driven, ambitious, competitive, impatient, aggressive, like
hostile.
These kind of qualities. And so they started thinking, oh, maybe this personality type is associated with, or maybe the cause of like higher risks for cardiovascular disease.
So type B did just kind of come out of a folding of type A. Just being like, oh, okay, so if there's all these people that were like actually studying, there must be these other people who are relaxed.
Yeah, it's funny because like,
patient.
as I said, when you're looking up type B, it's less, I mean, you might find things that like more relaxed, more like not as goal driven, it's easier for them to be happy without certain achievements. But a lot of times it's like technically defined as like they're less ambitious, they're less impatient, they're less aggressive. Like all the qualities of type A are just less in type B. So
type A individuals are easily wound up and tend to overreact. It's like, okay.
Now, okay. Obviously, I think like anecdotally, a lot of people do resonate with these categories, right? Like, and maybe that's just because it's culturally put on people.
And
but
it's simple. It's one or the other, as opposed to all the like, are you a blue FGF?
Yeah.
Are you like an
Blue
Enneagram 9F? Like it's just simple. It's like type A, type B, done.
And it feels like, you know, in my own regular life, if I had to put people into one of those categories, or at least there's very specific people that I would easily call type A. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like
in my life.
What about like
that doesn't make it
Rachel
real.
Berry from Glee? Type A.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we can go through like the versions. Monica from Friends.
Well, you'd assume anyone who's like super famous and successful anyway, even not as a character, because is probably a type A.
No, but then there's like the famous type B is like Seth Rogen, who's just like, I do pottery and smoke weed.
Yeah, but I bet you anything he's a type A if you knew him. He's obviously such a hard worker.
Well, unless you just got really lucky and there's
That's
people
true.
around. Like, no, I'm just like, it's not like everyone in Hollywood is type A. There's definitely type Bs. They just show up and probably are so lazy and just like hit their marks and leave.
Maybe. I think if you're that level of famous, you have to be type A. And I don't know.
Every single celebrity is type A.
The ones who are super successful. I think if you have like a one-hit wonder or you're famous for one thing, that's different. But if you've successfully been in Hollywood's mainstream eye for like decades, I think you have to be a type A.
Okay, whoa.
That's just my instinct. And like maybe if we knew Seth Rogen, we'd have a better read on like
Seth Rogen, the famous type B. So type A individuals are outgoing, ambitious, rigidly organized, highly status conscious, impatient, anxious, proactive, and concerned with time management. They push themselves with deadlines and hate both delays and ambivalence. So yeah, Rachel Berry.
Very. And type B, much more relaxed, generally lacking type A qualities. They have lower stress levels, greater tendency to disregard physical or mental stress when they do not achieve. One interesting thing, they have a poor sense of time.
So like, but still, it's like, isn't just a type B so what everyone's like saying you should be, like enjoying
nowadays? But I feel like when we were growing up,
we grew up in type A.
It's the same with me and like perfectionism. It was kind of celebrated. It's like, oh, if you're not a type A, like what are you doing?
It's all like 90s parents being like, your kid
you have
gonna
to
get
work
into MIT.
Yeah. Now, okay, I'm gonna take a little pause and say that the research surrounding this is controversial.
It's absolutely like
there is
made up.
Actually, well, but so is a lot of like stuff in psychology. It's obviously much harder to quantify, and that's why it was interesting that this was getting tagged with like cardiovascular disease to see like are these linked. But the biggest piece of controversy came from the tobacco industry funding this early research because they were trying to say like, look, it's not because you're smoking, it's the people who naturally are just like stressing themselves out and trying too hard that have all these cardiovascular issues. And so a lot of the
they were being like type A makes you sick not smoking.
Yeah, literally. And so that's why a lot of this research has been like rejected really on the premise of that, which is fair. But having said that, there is a lot of even research papers I found from like 2023, 2022, like recent years that are still addressing these kinds of qualities. So it's not as though it's all just like thrown out in the wash, but it's important to remember the sort of like basis of these qualities was maybe funded by the tobacco industry.
Yeah, like if there's one reason to sort of be skeptical is that.
Yeah.
Big smoke. Okay, so what do you think you are? It's so interesting because I'm like, are we both type A? Do we need to break up and have like type Bs in our life? Sorry,
definitely
I guess I
have
just
type Bs
answered
in
for
our
the
life.
question. I meant like as a couple, like the question was about attraction and like you said you thought I was type B, but as I read this, I was like, I am not.
Yeah, you're definitely not type B.
I'm like so
but you
impatient.
kind of like, why do people see you as a type B?
Because oh my God, I don't know.
Or at least
I like
when
them
we were
going
younger.
cross-eyed. It's hard to analyze yourself. And I don't know. Because I'm not wound up and I don't overreact.
Yeah, and like in
But I
university
do.
stuff, it's like you would study,
And I'm not
but you wouldn't try
competitive.
that hard. So it's not that you wouldn't try hard, but you know what I mean? Like you
No,
weren't
yeah.
like so obsessed.
I
with
would
getting
way
perfect
rather
grades
smoke a
and-
joint and make people laugh.
Yeah. So that feels very type B. But now knowing you, it's like if you don't have a project you can be working on, you're like gonna go insane.
Okay. So, well, I did ask you. We'll go right to me. Type A or type B. Like, what do you think you are?
Oh,
It's
type
so
A.
interesting for you. You
No,
think,
I am a type A. Yeah.
but okay.
What? Competitive?
Time management girl. I've never met someone with worse time management skills in my life.
That's literally that's not true. And anyone listening to this podcast has to know. Like
Push themselves with deadlines,
what do you mean?
girl.
Who do you think
you've never had a deadline
started
in your
ASAP
life?
Science out of the two of us?
That's nothing to do with anything. It was literally me. I was the one who gave you the push because I was actually teaching kids in school because I was type A and I was already in teachers college.
That's not true.
It is true. That has nothing to do with like you don't
I
use
was
deadlines.
definitely more driven than you. I would
for
study
sure.
more than you.
In the
I was like
past.
doing more extracurriculars when we were in university. I was like always trying
that's
to
true.
achieve.
Okay, so that's what you're going to the past. I'm talking about now. Don't you think there's been a really
I'm a type
interesting-
A who's had a lot of fucking therapy and who also achieved and then realized and none of it would make me happy.
Interesting. I think maybe you're actually a type B, but you've been
You think I'm
raised to be type
relaxed
A.
and easygoing?
Okay, sorry. I guess not. You're right. But
I mean,
you're
like, I guess I am-
patient.
Yeah, but I guess it depends on what.
Yeah. I mean, this is maybe why it all falls apart, because it's like hard to really put yourself in. But like, okay,
most people would say I'm a type A, I think.
Yes, I guess.
And I think Greg is just like ADHD, always doing things.
Oh my
No, I just think like from the outside, especially by friends and stuff, would perceive me as someone who like is doing lots of things all the time.
you're right.
I'm always like wanting to have a project, even if it's not to the same like extent as you.
So these are some questions that you could ask yourselves at home, or even ourselves, to figure out what we are, because we're clearly lost, which is, do you feel guilty if you use spare time to relax?
Like, no.
Exactly.
So it's actually not a no. It's yes, but I still I always feel guilty, but I also really love to have just empty spare time.
I am type B, because I'm realizing that question is like, so yeah, I never relax, but I would never feel guilty if I relax. I'd be so proud of myself.
Whereas I do have a level of guilt, but I know I need I love the relaxing and I need time to just like veg, but there's always a little bit of a,
oh my God.
head.
Even like the beach, like I can go anytime to the beach and be like, that was a perfect use of my day because I relaxed. Whereas you don't go because you're like,
it feels like, we've even talked about like reading science books feels like a relaxing activity, but I won't do it because it doesn't feel like I'm working.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Like
Unless
it isn't
I'm like doing it at night.
The key word is, do you feel guilty if you use spare time to relax? When I read that, I was like, I never relax, so I'm type A, but it's actually like something I'm working on, and I never feel guilty when I actually do relax. I'm like so proud. Okay. Do you need to win in order to derive enjoyment from games or sports? So
not as much anymore. See, what's the word? I'm a recovered type A.
Yeah, because I'm like
but that's something that people would say. Yeah, I'm like highly competitive in that way.
I really don't like winning, except
that this is a facade.
No. I'm saying I actually don't care about winning. I don't really like games that much in general. Like.
Greg?
Stop it. No, Mitch. Okay, Mitch. This is the thing about Mitch. He is so type A. You are so type A. That
I am. Yeah.
You can sense his A. You're really good at games.
You're deflecting.
No, because it's about like what you're talking about. You're really good at games. Yeah. And you don't have a poker face for how much you want to win.
That's true.
So people really do want to beat you, including me. And so it does get to this point where
Greg
it's like,
is an incognito type A. Because for this exact reason, in games, for example, you always play the like, oh, woe is me.
It's
I don't know
strategy.
what I'm doing. And then he's always like pulling, like if we're playing Mario Kart or a board game, I feel like your strategy is always to be like, I'm always losing. And then you're always winning. And it's but somehow I get pegged as the one who's always going to win. Everyone team up on me.
Okay, but my enjoyment of the game has nothing to do with winning or losing.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? But I do definitely play up my ignorance in games because it is like a tactic. Also, it's just like a way to maybe even because I'm like subtly type A, like not care about winning or losing by being like, oh, I'm so bad. It's like, then it doesn't matter. And if I win, it's like, oh, random. I'm so good.
I've had to condition myself to stop caring as much about I have a handful of other type A, sure, I wouldn't necessarily call them type A friends, but they're competitive gaming friends, right?
Yeah.
And when I'm with those people, we all get each other. We're all like, yeah, we're not going to play, like we're playing to win. Everyone's here like we're trying to win, but I understand them when you're with people who are more casual playing games, it can come off as like aggressive and actually domineering. So I've had to sort of like adjust because I did realize sometimes when I'm like playing even a video game, it's coming off like I care so much. And maybe I do, but it's when you're around other
so interesting. When you're so type A.
No, but you know which friends I'm talking about, right? Yes, who are really good at games. It's like we're playing a win.
Yes, but I think that there's really interesting words in these questions. Like, do you feel guilty? Do you need to win in order to derive enjoyment? Like, that's the whole point. It's like there's something interesting there because it's like you can actually be really competitive and be a really great player, but very clearly not derive enjoyment from winning or losing.
Yeah.
And I actually think some of the people you're discussing, including I think where you're at now with your like therapy type A, you can do both. But I have actually very interestingly watched you in the past be like, I don't like that game anymore because like people gang up on you and you start losing. And it's like,
well,
maybe you were deriving enjoyment from winning.
But it does never feel good to be ganged up on.
No, I know. But if you didn't derive enjoyment from winning, you wouldn't care as much.
Yeah, that's true.
Like there is something about you, like you actually did in the past derive enjoyment from winning.
Stop playing certain games, but it felt like because I was being pegged as the one who was always going to win. So from the get-go, like in Catan, people would like tag team me and just like screw me over. And I was like, that actually is mean and not fun for me. Obviously.
But I'm just saying there's something interesting there because I think at the time you were not as therapied, and I think maybe you were losing a lot, and that was worse. Whereas it's like, if you don't care about winning or losing, if people gaming up on you, it's like, that doesn't feel good, but at least you're like, it's probably not impacting so bad. If you're not type A, you're just wow, everyone wants to beat me because I'm so good at this, but who cares? We're just having fun.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Mm-hmm.
This is where I'm like, I'm type A. Do you generally move, walk, and eat rapidly?
You do to all the above.
Flew off of my bike because I was biking way too fast. I eat so fast. Like sometimes I'll like sit down and be like, done, pay the bill. And people will be like, we are getting our apps.
It's me. It's me sitting at the table, going, standing and leaving. And I'm like, I have only half done my meal.
When I'm walking on the sidewalk, I'm just body checking losers out of the way. I'm like, move, wench.
There's this new not new TikTok account, but it's a guy in New York who like from behind evaluates people's walking. So whenever he finds like a fast walker, he's like, 10 out of 10. This is amazing. It's just like a girl like zooming down the street in New York. Versus people who are just like strolling.
Well, yeah, exactly. So there you go. I'm a New Yorker in that way.
So in this way, I'm opposite. I love to walk slow.
Yeah, exactly.
I love to eat slow. But I do like to
you
generally
eat slow
move.
like in such a psychotic way to piss me off.
I have a swallowing anxiety.
A little bit of food on the fork. A little nib. I'm like, Mitch, you're doing this to piss me off. I want to go. I'm just enjoying my parfait.
That's the thing. You think it's about you. I'm just like, you think I'm sitting there.
I'm like, you can put more rice on your fork.
I don't know. I'm in no rush. And I do, I like to, life passes me by and I just want to like enjoy every bite. Is that such a crime?
No, and that's your type B moment. That's my type A. And then another one, do you often try to do more than one thing at a time? Which is
that's a you 100%.
Constantly blasting an audiobook into my ears while I paint, or like I can't.
Yeah, and I know I can't do that. I would say like maybe in the past I would be juggling more things, but I just am not very good at that.
So I think we're type A, we're type B, and to answer the question, it's like I do think that there really is probably, this is not scientific. I'm going to get into some actual scientific studies on things soon because you kind of have to go a little bit outside of type A, type B to get some like cool research.
Actual research, yeah.
But I genuinely think that type A and type B personalities together really do work.
As
like,
complementary romantic or friendship
as I was reading about type A versus type B, I'm like, okay, I can see these people. And I started thinking of couples in my life that I'm like, oh, damn, that chef's kiss. Like, I'd go to that wedding and I'd cry. And there's a lot of that. Whereas when there's two type A or two type B is when you start to kind of observe people and go, okay.
Yeah.
Like, and I think it's not anything with research I could find, but this is now a conversation about what do you actually think?
as our own experience, you mean, or just like,
like
not based on research? Yeah,
no, that's what I'm saying. There is no research. Agree.
And I mean, I think most people anecdotally have that experience. It maybe isn't. It's maybe too simplistic to call it type A, type B, but definitely you hear it in many different ways. Opposites attract, and we know based on research that's actually not that true, even if it is true in some ways. But generally, couples have similar-ish political leanings, similar-ish beliefs about the world. But like for example, us, we're so opposite in so many ways. But if you really came down to it, like we're really similar.
You eat slow, I eat fast.
Yeah, there's almost like these micro characteristics that don't matter as much in the way that they're not fundamental differences. It's just like behavioral differences.
But there's something interesting about us, which is like, I do think like, okay, if you are type, I think in the past when we got together and it all made sense to people, like you were clearly type A and I was clearly type B. As we've been together for so frickin' long and like things have changed, you're a recovering type A. I'm like, I don't know, turning type A because I have like an addiction to weed or something. That doesn't sound like it should make sense, but weed makes me absolutely fast and crazy. Like there are times where I think a lot of the tension in our relationship, which there doesn't seem to be that as much of late, but when there is, it's almost like because there's too similar of these things. Like I'm not the type B I used to be, you know what I mean? And that's when you're annoyed. You're like, you're always fucking doing shit. Like you're being like fast. You're like, that's when you're always annoyed with me with impatience. You're always annoyed with me when I'm kind of like doing too much. Like if I was just like a cute little like type B at home, just like, oh, oh, where's my milk?
But that
You'd love that. But I'm not. I'm just like going crazy. Like, or sorry, the issues you have with me are type A. Like, I don't know. I just feel like, and same with you. Like, if I feel like there is a person out there who could either be really way more type A and I'd be attracted to them, or they'd have to be like super type B and I'm type A. Like, I could see how like the attraction
a sort of role that you have your space to be the one who kind of takes on certain.
We were talking about this recently, like with like attraction to guys, how it's like sometimes I'll meet a guy who's like extremely like physically attractive, tons of reasons he's like enigmatic, but he reminds me of me.
Yeah.
And I'll be like so unturned on it. It's like so weird because you're like,
okay, well, I think it's worth jumping into the science because I think the biggest criticisms are that this is too simplistic of a mode, and all out of the studies that really focus on type A, type B, they're not that what's the word?
replicable.
Replicable?
No, replicatable. Replicatable.
Why can't we say the words?
Oh my God.
Like there's not consistency between these studies, and I think it's because these terms are so broad.
Vague.
And like you're saying things that I'm not disagreeing with, but then I'm like, oh, but I don't see that as type A versus type B.
Yeah. So like some of the studies that actually are on personality factors, there will be words like extroversion. Like you can study that. Agreeableness, conscientiousness, emotional stability, autonomy. Like these are like descriptions that you can study through surveys.
More specifically, yeah.
And not just like if you start actually using adjectives for people's traits, you can get somewhere. But being like type A, type B, it's just too vague.
Yeah. And I'll say like when it came to the cardiovascular risks, more recent studies are like we can link those to personality traits, but specifically to hostility and anger, which are often more linked to type A, but they're more specific than just saying a type A person. It's like, no, people who have more anger and who are more hostile in general tend to have higher rates of cardiovascular disease.
And that seems like a completely different study. It's on anger and hostility.
100%.
Yeah.
But that all they could really say is like,
Yeah.
and those are sometimes called partially type A personality traits.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about it before on this pod, but the only sort of like scientific personality test is called the Big Five personality test, which is like kind of the one that it's not as though it's like some magic perfect thing that analyzes you, but it doesn't give you a personality type. It measures you across a handful of different characteristics and puts you on a scale on them. And that has been like more consistent in studies.
That's what I had just read. The extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness.
Oh yeah, you're right. Those are the
Big Five.
Yeah.
So some studies on that, like this one was cool. It was on people like who studied or did courses online versus in person, and how their faces actually changed. Like physically, they like essentially scanned their faces and found people who are more agreeable were more expressive when they interacted with people face to face versus online. And like it didn't matter if the screen was off or on, because they would like they would do online classes where you would see people and online classes where you couldn't.
But it would still be evaluating faces.
Yeah. So like if you're an agreeable person, you're going to actually use more of your face in face-to-face interactions, which is like interesting. It's like, this isn't type A, type B, but it's like agreeable people are probably like just very, picture someone moving their face. It feels like it's a good feeling, a warm feeling. People who are more extroverted were more expressive in the online studies when they could see other people and their camera was on. So it was actually like extroverts are like aware of like the performance of the face, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then people who are more agreeable prefer in-person classes versus online, whereas other people who were more like conscientious would rather do things online. So there was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like, being in person, everyone's like, it's a better thing, but there are certain people who are better at it. And then self-efficacy, which I thought was kind of interesting. It's like a belief that you possess effective skills to successfully perform an action. Like you have the confidence in your own abilities. And I was like, that's kind of type A vibes.
Maybe, but I think you could also argue that many type A people are constantly insecure. And that's why they feel the need to achieve.
Interesting.
That could be an argument. That would be like looking at myself, being like, was the achievement as a hope to make me feel like I was good enough, but constantly feeling like I wasn't.
Well, this was a criminal study, and it was like people who have higher self-efficacy are more likely to partake in workplace crimes. And self-efficacy and being religious positively mediated criminal behavior.
What?
I know. And it had to do with like...
You feel like you can be forgiven?
Yeah, it was like very interesting. And feeling like the
justified?
state is like against you. Like finding like what's it called? It was like some sort of like religious freedom, like being like above the law. It was very interesting. But I was like, I didn't know if self-efficacy meant type A, but I guess you're right. It doesn't. But self-efficacy is when you're like, I can do it. Like I can do these things.
Yeah. Speaking of those like big 5 personality traits, some other studies have found associations. So like conscientiousness correlates with a longer life. Extroversion correlates with higher sales for sales reps. Low conscientiousness and high extroversion may be better predictors of cardiovascular risk than the type AB model.
Interesting.
So those are like more legit, quote unquote, legit studies that are able to actually like tie into a specific quality and link it as opposed to like a more vague.
This one was crazy. It's also on the Big 5. Again, that's like all that you can get science articles on. It changes. So extroverted people would walk with more lower body movement. The walking guy should do this. Whereas conscientious people would have more upper body movement, suggesting that your personality traits do change your walking behavior.
That's so interesting.
I know. I was like,
I want to
that's crazy.
see like videos from that study or like animations of what
lower body movement extroversion, because you're just shaking that fat ass and just
or
being
like
hell yeah,
wobbling, or just like legs are traveling farther or something like that.
And conscientious, you're constantly like your upper body movement being like, sorry, oh my god, sorry miss,
Is that
sorry,
what you
babe.
think? But like, yeah, weird to be like your upper body's moving more.
And then this was about facial expressions and like how you talk and move when you speak based on personality types. So extroversion was associated with more laughter. I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But also more angry vocalizations. Agreeableness, like more agreeable people would yawn more, which I thought was kind of interesting. Conscientious people would sing way less and sigh way less. I was like, that's so interesting, because sighing is so it's very like, look
putting
at me.
something out in the world. Yeah.
Like, there's nothing funnier than someone sighing who you don't want to talk to. You're like, oh. And then neuroticism, you would laugh more, cry more, vocalize more angrily more, sing more, sigh more, and yawn more.
Wow.
But I was like, neuroticism and singing, I was like, that's so interesting. I thought you'd be like scared, but the singing was the highest one. Neurotic people sang the most. Just
in
like
some
in
of
their
these studies, they're linking neuroticism with extroversion. So I don't know
That's interesting.
how they're defining neuroticism.
Yeah, this was talking, I was reading the details and they were like, neurotic people are more likely to go and do that little like a tick. And I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. It's like some sort of like, there's something on maybe in your head. But I was like, that's really interesting. I've never thought about, and you could easily study that if they're just watching people all day or something.
Yeah.
Just like, how often are they like,
Yeah, in their own like,
and
little
probably
bubble.
don't even know. Like it's I love thinking about that. And people who are more open, they would cry less, have less angry vocalizations, and yawn less. So I was like, that's kind of interesting. Again, it's like these are the traits people are studying. It's like not type A, type B.
Sorry, there are still studies on type A, type B. Like I had found some like even like 2019, a study on 3,000 adolescents that found like quote unquote type A high scores in adolescents predicted higher cardiovascular risk. So studies are still looking into this, but I think maybe people would just argue like it's too broad a category. Something I wanted to bring up that I thought was really cool. There's a third type D, and the reason,
big double D's. I got a couple knockers.
No, basically, so a lot of recent studies are on this. The reason this one has basically been identified and more focused on is because they're able to be like, this personality type is actually associated with higher risk of like death and like a metabolic
type D for death.
I shouldn't have said death. Usually it's metabolic syndrome, which is a cluster of symptoms that are usually associated with cardiovascular disease. And so like type D is the joint tendency towards negative affectivity, so like worrying, irritability, gloom, and social inhibition, so like the lack of self-assurance. So people who have those two things, they're like, oh, these qualities are actually in our studies showing that they are linked to higher rates of metabolic syndrome. It was like 13% versus 6% in other types of
Imagine being like, oh yeah, there's my worrying, irritable, gloomy, not self-assured type D friend. Like drag me.
Yeah.
Whew. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. I think for us, like, and I think to go back to the original question, like, I think it's fun to read these questions on type A, type B, I think it's good to like kind of have an idea like of where you stand, especially in your partnerships or your friendships. Like it's fun. It's just like a way to, but I don't like, as we did those questions, it feels like you have type A traits, I have type A traits. Type
people
B,
aren't
type B.
so simple.
And it's almost like
and it
I
might
do
be
think
different. Like you may be type A in some ways that I'm not, and I may be type A in different ways that you're not.
and it almost feels like biologically you might be type B, but we're raised to be type A. And I might be biologically type A, but raised to be type B. And so you end up in this like nature nurture.
Yeah.
Like,
I would say like, well, of course, follow your heart with whoever you end up attracted to, but I wouldn't limit yourself to especially first impressions because you never really know what someone actually, they may be like this fronting version of one and unsure if they're actually more naturally another. And so I think like it makes sense to be drawn like as somebody who is, well, weirdly, a lot of people have told me lately I am extroverted, and it's not that I think I'm not. I just like my alone time. So generally, and I'm not like I like to be with someone like Greg who's like chatty and like you've always got things going on because it gives me the space to just like kind of be quiet. And so maybe you would call that type A, type B, or just extroverted.
imagine you just found out you're just drinking more.
And that's why
you're like, everyone's like, I'm so extroverted. I'm like, he's just in his party phase.
No, I'm not in my party phase.
No, but I mean, like, it's funny. Like, I was just laughing because it's like,
it depends. I think
you
like,
get really like outgoing.
Oh,
when
they're
you're
going to say you
drinking.
get really wasted.
No, you don't. But like, you can have a couple drinks and you can chat.
And I think it just depends on whom I'm around. Once I'm more comfortable with people, well, actually, I don't know about myself. But either way, no, because sometimes I'm like going into a room where I don't know anyone by myself. I think if it's a safe environment, I will come off as extroverted as a defense of like, I'm trying to like make the group feel like good and it depends on who it is though. If it's a bunch of like scary straight people.
Scary?
Well, I'm just like,
oh my God.
if I'm in a group of like new queer people, I think I'll feel safer to be more like outgoing and effeminate and just like not worrying about how I'm being perceived.
Yeah.
Whereas like in like a more professional setting, I guess I'm more self-monitoring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm less likely to be extroverted, and it depends. If there's lots of extroverted people around me, I've just noticed like, and I'm sure many people feel this way, I morph back and forth. When there's really extroverted people around me, I will easily become an introvert. But if there's not a lot of extroverted people, I'll fill that role.
Yes.
I think.
And you talk a lot. That's the thing. I think sometimes people
never
like
shut up.
No, but like I think that like some people like think of introversion as like quiet, which you're not quiet. Like you talk a lot. So like I think you actually are quite introverted, but I think in settings like people think of you as extroverted because you talk a lot.
But except like you have such a better skill of like there's times when I'm like I can't think of what to say to this person.
I know, and I think sometimes you might actually like fill in by talking a lot. Do you know what I mean? And like, and then it's like comes off as extroversion, where really, and you might be way more in your head. Whereas I, like, don't ever think about what I'm talking about. Like, I don't get like, what am I trying to say? Like I will say what I need to say loudly to a bunch of people, get a laugh, and then stop talking.
Or it's like your brain's always moving. You've always got something to say.
Yeah, that's true.
For me,
I don't like silence.
With the right, you don't like silence. With the right person, I can chat forever, and especially even when they're new.
But I can't, or I don't want to.
But then you're good at like sometimes you might be in a group, and I might be with you where the vibe is a little less like flowy. Like we don't, especially in like a professional setting when you don't really know people, you're not like hitting it off per se, but you like them. I feel like you're better at just like, okay, what about this? I'm gonna pull out this cultural reference, or like,
okay, yeah, I
have
see
a better
what you're
like
saying.
Rolodex of things to talk
Gift
about.
of the gab.
Whereas I like once I connect with someone, can just like go off.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And like if we go to a dog park, you're chatting, whereas I'm not.
Only if I feel drawn to somebody.
Yes.
Like lots of times I'm happy to just like be silent. But like every now and then there's someone who I'm like, oh, I like their energy.
This is it's such a weird thing to think about, like you and like people in like party settings. It's so interesting. It's so interesting, but it's also so like fascinating and like important, and it's like a fun thing to watch everyone go through. Like the idea of walking into a party where there's like the perfect amount of like just acquaintances is such an interesting way that like I feel like I'm just going spiraling with all the different situations I've been in. It's so hard to be like, what are you?
And it's different all the time for everyone, right? Like,
but I'm definitely extroverted because I get energy. I walk into a party, I'm like, let's fucking go, and I have so much fun.
Whereas some parties I can walk into and be like, I'm terrified. I don't want to be here.
You like will be like, I need to leave. Yeah. Which is introversion, right? Or you'll leave and you'll be like, I'm tired.
Depends. I've also learned a lot about myself, and now I know, even when it's with a big group of friends, like if we go to a cottage or even just a party, there's always a moment where I go, okay, I need to go to a quiet space, which is usually a bathroom, and like recalibrate. And then once I've done that one time, usually I'm okay. But I get like overstimulated really fast, and then I'm like, I need to evacuate. But now I've learned it's like, just give yourself 2 minutes in the bathroom alone, and then I'm usually okay.
Yeah, and you're also like are extroverted because you talk like, it's crazy how often people out in these streets just talk about themselves and don't ask questions. Like I'm thinking about like, I'm like, that is some crazy shit. Like when you're at a party and you're slowly realizing like, this motherfucker. And I'm like, it happens all the time. Like to me, I'm like, to be social and to be extroverted, you just have to be genuinely curious about other people, which I think you are. And it's like, if I met you at a party, I would think you were so extroverted because I'd be like, thank God he's like having a conversation. It is crazy what people are out there doing these days. It's like, if you don't talk, enough that it's like, what is that? I'm like, it's not it's like, what is that? Because it's like they're able to talk, they seem extroverted, but they're just talking about themselves. And when the conversation goes off their interest, they go like cross-eyed and they completely tap out, and it's like, get checked.
And that is the worst feeling.
That is the worst feeling.
Because when it's like finally you say something about yourself and you can just tell they're not paying attention anymore, and you're like, I've just sat here for 30 minutes listening to your like down the ass story.
It's like, go to the episode we have about like Riz or whatever. Like, what was it about? Like being enigmatic, and it's like, want to know how to not have Riz or whatever? It's do that.
It's not like actually engaging with other people's
and like other people are so interesting. I always think about parties. I'm like, this is an opportunity to like actually learn about people. And then it's just
and
like,
that feels good, and you can tell the people who are good at it, like it feels good to give them that, it feels good to get that, and that's like when you can connect with someone
yeah. I don't know, obviously, like
okay, I mean, like to end this episode, I'd say take it with a grain of salt in terms of hard line type A, type B. It's still interesting, there is lots of research on it, but obviously it's not so hard lined, it's maybe a bit too simplistic. Still fun though.
Do you have a what did we learn this week?
I do, yeah.
Okay, because I do too, but then I also, I just want to say, okay, wait, let's take a little break and then we'll come back and I'm going to have two what did we learn this week. Because like, this is so weird. It was like, I went down a rabbit hole stoned out of my mind while looking up type A, type B and ended up on where smiles come from, and it's crazy.
Oh, well, okay, mine's about orgasms, so stick around.
Oh, whoa, and mine's also about weed messing with your dick.
Oh.
Okay, so
come back.
We're going to be back after the break.
Okay, I'm going to need, my back's hurt, and I'm going to need you to push that button.
Oh, okay.
This bottom.
My elbows.
If you're wondering on video why I have pillows behind my back, it's because I broke my back. Okay.
See you in a bit.